Go. All right, OBS. Woohoo! Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Travis Carter, and this is Carter's Corner Daily. It's not quite right. Let's fix this up a bit. There you go. All right, been nearly a week since I've actually done one of these, and as always, coffee. All right, so bit of an update for you all. Supposed to do a Carter's Corner Thursday and Friday. Actually lost my voice on the Thursday, and then I had my daughter's third birthday party on the Friday, so I just didn't have time. One of the great things about being a content creator on these platforms, you got to do everything yourself. Your research, the programming, the timing. You get sick, you got no one to fill in for. So it makes things a little bit hard. So that's also another reason why it's really, really important to support your favorite content creators. If they've got a Patreon or some sort of subscription service, make sure you jump on board to help them out. Myself, I've got a Patreon account. Also, jumping onto the old Facebook, I call it Stalkbook, YouTube, and obviously Twitch. Getting onto those things really helps out as well. So it's awesome. So today's been I'm not getting into the press releases. There was a heap over the weekend. Not much of substance. So there was a bit, and unfortunately, because I didn't cover this over the week, not much of it is actually still relevant. There is a couple of things, so I'm just going to pull that up for you now. Word document. That's the one I want. Good old Roger Cook. And let's bring that one live. Boom. Okay, so this one actually came out on Thursday, the day I lost my voice. So there's been a quarantine advisory panel has been appointed. Now, I don't know if that's Roger Cook has appointed this or if there's a board, so let's go find out. Okay, so 10-member advisory panel to oversee hotel quarantine in WA. Panel made up of public sector leaders and independent experts. Panel chairperson is Community Services Advocate Sue Ash. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know a lot about Sue. I haven't had a chance to do much research on her. Okay, Health Minister Roger Cook has today announced an appointment of Quarantine Advisory Panel, QAP, to provide strategic oversight of Western Australian hotel quarantine system. I'll give you some free advice. Just scrap it, leave it in the hands of the military. They know what they're doing. They're not going to fumble their way through. Moving on. The panel will be led... where are we? Here we go. We are right here. The panel will be led by independent chairperson Sue Ash, who has previously been the Chief Executive Officer of Uniting Care West, Western Australia Council of Social Services, Care Options, and Wanslea. Okay, that'll do. And is recognised as a leader in advocacy on behalf of the community service sector. She is also a former deputy chairperson of the State Emergency Management Committee. Fran Logan was a previous State Emergency Minister. If she's a part of the State Emergency Committee, I'd say that she's not very good. That's my first impressions. To say that she is recognised as a leader in advocacy on behalf of the community service sector, anytime someone starts saying, they're an advocacy person or something like that, it generally tells me that they've read a couple of reports and they did a lot of reading, but they don't really have much experience in what's actually going on. Prime example of that is especially a lot of the Indigenous problems that we have up in the Northern Territory and the Kimberleys and WA. A lot of these advocate groups are actually based in Perth. So they're saying, Perth has these problems, so Northern Territory will have the same problems. So we'll just treat them the same. And you can't do that because everything should be done on a case-by-case basis. So what the problem is in Northern Territory will not be the same as the problems in Perth, which will not be the same as the problems in Albany, which will not be the same as the problems in Kalgoorlie. So my faith in advocacy people doesn't really exist. I think we need to have people who have actually experienced the problems to be a part of the advisory board rather than advocates who have done some reading or has a university degree and have actually no experience on what's it actually like to have their boots on the ground. Now, I could be totally wrong. Before she became part of the advocacy program, Sue Ash could have experienced a lot of these things. She could have been an actual person that required the help of Uniting Care West, West Australian Council of Social Services, and all that sort of stuff. She might have that real life experience. Again, I don't have enough knowledge around Sue Ash to know whether she's got the experience for this role or not. Let's see. The chairperson will work alongside 5 public sector leaders and 4 independent experts to provide strategic oversight of the management of West Australia's quarantine arrangements. Okay, we have Sue Ash, the independent chairperson. So Dr. Russell Wise. I'm going to say Wise because I'm not sure. Director General of the Department of Health. So that's the person that's assigned by the Minister of Health Services. So this guy was probably assigned by this guy into his direct position there. So we safely assume that that guy is probably a Labor supporter. Dr. Andrew Robertson, Chief Health Officer. If he's a Chief Health Officer, he's probably associated with Roger Cook. Commissioner Chris Dawson, State Emergency Coordinator, again Labor. And Emily Roper, Attorney Director, General Department of, I think that's Attorney Director, for Premier and Cabinet. Nikki Godecki, Department of Finance. Professor Alan Cheng, Public Health Experts. I've actually heard of this guy before. A lot of his articles they wrote is actually pretty good, so I don't mind that one. Professor Alison Jones, toxicology expert. Rob McDonald, former South Metropolitan Health Services Board Chair, and Gary Taylor, Attorney Executive Director, Safety, Freight and Business Management Systems, Public Transport Authority. I think this guy is actually going to be the most important out of all of this, because for some reason, every single time there's a quarantine outbreak, they don't know where it's coming from. So I think Gary is going to have a very, very big impact on this one. I think he's going to be able to figure out where the contamination is coming from. I think the toxicology lady, Professor Alison Jones, is also going to play a very major role in this one. The rest of it, and also Professor Alan Cheng, like I said, I've read some of the stuff that he's done. I'm actually a bit of a fan of his. The rest of them just seem like plants from the Labor Party. If they really wanted to have an independent advisory board, like 4 of them or 5 of them, whatever, I would have loved to have seen someone like Dr. Judy Wildman put onto this board. I think she, being on the total opposite end of the spectrum, will look at a lot of things that these guys won't. I think this is going to be a very narrow-sighted board, and I don't think it's going to be very efficient. Okay, the panel will provide advice to the Department of Health, the lead agency responsible for the state's quarantine system. Oh, that's a big claim. So if the Department of Health is the lead agency responsible for the state quarantine system, they're the ones that are responsible for the quarantine outbreaks out of the hotel system. So therefore, shouldn't this guy be looking to resign for his failure of his department in the quarantine system? There we go. Quick coffee break. Oh, that's good. Love coffee. The panel responsible includes assessing and advising on the capacity, capability and performance of Western Australian quarantine arrangement, including looking at the safety and wellbeing of guests and staff, as well as the corporate governance aspects such as procurement, contract management, workforce, industrial arrangements. Now, there's a very interesting comment here. So the capability, capacity and performance of West Australian quarantine arrangements. Now, this is the important part, including looking at the safety and well-being of guests and staff. So if they are, I wonder if they count the quarantine people as guests, because if they're in quarantine, they shouldn't be having guests. And staff, obviously, that is staff. So in this list of people, being stuck in the quarantine in there for such a long time, and considering how much the suicide rates have increased during the COVID pandemic, there's no one in here that has a mental wellbeing, mental safety, psychology background. So I'm wondering how well is the safety and well-being of the people, not only the people suffering the quarantine, but also the staff that have to deal with these people. Are they actually really having a look at that? So something like the Commissioner Chris Dawson, State Emergency Coordinator, I don't think they've really got a position on here. That should have been taken up with someone for mental health. Something along those lines would have been a lot more better selection. All right, moving on. It will also monitor and engage with the other jurisdictions, looking at responses to outbreaks from quarantine facilities and relevant research and advice to help inform continuous improvement in WA's quarantine system. I don't mind that. Constant improvement is always a good thing. You need to be able to look at things in a non-biased manner, and that's why I'm thinking having someone like Professor Judy Wildman on this list, love her or hate her, she is going to be blunt as a shovel to the face. She will look at things that others won't. That's one thing I've noticed about her. She's able to think outside the box. She's a very mentally agile woman. I think she would have been a great person to have on this board, purely for she will look at things that other people won't look at. And when you got things like hotel quarantine, you always hear people saying, "Oh, we don't know how it got out." You need someone with that agile line of thinking who can go, "You know what? This isn't usual." As Murphy's Law states, if it can happen, it will. So she is someone that I think they should have included on it just because of her agile thinking. Okay, terms of reference for the QAP have been developed in line with a review of Western Australian quarantine arrangements by Dr. Tarun Ramathuri. I sincerely apologise if I butchered that name. I have no idea even where that could be from. Okay, so comments from Health Minister Roger Cook. I welcome this new advisory panel, which has been set up specifically to provide strategic oversight to WA's quarantine arrangement. The panel comprises of public sector leaders and public health experts, all of whom have significant experience and credentials. They will be part of the vital forum to escalate and resolve risk around WA's current and future hotel quarantine arrangement. The work of this panel will provide assurance that WA quarantine system is fit for purpose and responsive to the dynamic and complex challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. So if there was really an independent one, and it was really designed by the right person for the job, the panel comprises of public sector leaders and public health experts who have significant experience and credentials. It seems to me that the biggest credential these guys have is they've got to be a Labor supporter. I don't think they have picked the best person for the job in a lot of these positions. So it'll be very, very interesting to see the outcome. Now, the question is, if we do get another quarantine outbreak, are these guys the ones that will take the fall for it, or will that still go back to the health minister? Anyway, so that's the first press release for you. A bit of a question there for you. I'd love to hear your comments about that, whether you think the health minister should be taken for the fall for any failures caused by hotel quarantine, or is there another issue that we haven't looked at on this one that needs to be taken into account? Okay, let's jump over to the next one, and I have just had a press release come through. It's kind of cool. So the first one for today came through at 7 a.m. this morning. The rest that came out weren't really anything. They were, again, a bit of fluff. So I am skipping a few because I'm late to them. It's as simple as that. That one. That one. Okay. That's the one we want. Click. Boom. Here we go. So I'm curious about this one. So this came out Sunday. WA Voluntary Assisted Dying Board appointment. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm on the fence on this one. Is it counted as suicide? But then again, you look at someone who's like got terminal cancer. There's no way they can save them. They've only got 6 months left to live, and they're in excruciating pain, even with all the painkillers. If they just want to end it, can they? So it's been reported it's legal now, but whether it's morally correct or not is another question. Okay, so the board to oversee voluntary assisted dying in WA, members appointed for terms of up to 3 years. When you're dealing with this, I don't think you'd want to be on there for more than 3 years. And the board will commence its function as of July 1st, so that's like a month away. The McGowan government has today announced its inaugural membership of the Voluntary Assisted Dying Board, VADB. The 5-member board will have a mostly advisory and monitoring function in relation to voluntary assisted dying, which will become an end-of-life option for eligible Western Australians from the 1st of July. The board will ensure adherence to the legislation and report to the state government as necessary on quality and safety improvements related to voluntary assisted dying. While initial appointment to the board is for a term of no more than 3 years, members may be reappointed beyond that period. Okay, I'm not sure if I like that. The board will be chaired by General Practitioner and former AMA WA Branch President Dr. Scott Blackwell. Dr. Blackwell has expertise in palliative and aged care and has chaired the implementation leadership team on voluntary assisted dying. I actually don't mind that. The guy's got experience in the palliative care industry. I think that is super important, and I think that's something that's lacking in the other advisory board for quarantine. Okay, other members to the board. Colin Holt, Deputy Chairperson. Mr. Holt has recently retired as a member of the Legislative Council for the Southwest Region. He was also Deputy Chairperson on the Select Committee of End-of-Life Choices. Having a politician in this, I'm not sure. Dr. Robert Edis. Dr. Edis is a consultant neurologist with a particular interest in motor neuron disease and is the Vice President of the Motor Neuron Disease Association of West Australia. Yeah, I think this gentleman should definitely be on this board. Motor neuron disease is just nasty. Maria Osman. Miss Osman is a senior consultant and advisory specialist in human rights, diversity, and gender matters, and is a former executive director of the WA Office of Multicultural Interests and Women's Policies. She was on the Ministerial Expert Panel on Voluntary Assisted Dying. Okay, so this creates immediate concerns for me. Yeah. When you're at the end of life, politics shouldn't be playing a matter in this one. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not too impressed with Colin Holt being on there. I don't think this Maria Osman should be on here either. By the sounds of it, she's a human rights activist. She's a women's rights activist. We don't need a gender war at the end of life. So it should be more about if someone comes to them saying, look, I'm at the end of my life, I've got terminal cancer, I've got this terminal illness, whether it's motor neuron disease or whatever it is, I'm at my absolute wit's end here, I want to terminate my life. This board should be about assessing the person on a case-by-case basis. Is this the right thing for this person and their family? Is this person being hassled into it by family members who just want their investment money early? Is the person truly terminal? Is there research that could save this person's life? Things like that need to be taken into account, not women's policies or political issues. I don't like it. I don't think this is the right appointment. I really don't. Okay, and last one is Linda Savage. Miss Savage is a former director of the Social Security Appeals Tribunal and a legal member of the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. She has also been a member of the Legislative Council. Again, you're talking about end of life here, and you've got two confirmed former politicians and a women's advocate. So if you could argue there's three politicians in here. You've only got two doctors. I like that there's a Social Security Appeals Tribunal. I think that of the three politicians, I think Linda's got she's the best person for it. Her knowledge on the Social Security Appeals Tribunal would be phenomenal. So I actually don't mind Linda, but I think it's two politically weighted. I don't think that this is the right thing to do it. Again, there's no mental psychiatrist expert on this advisory panel. You've got no one. So you got to remember, someone going through terminal cancer, they're at the end of their life. The questions like, is there an afterlife coming in, and all that side of things. It's going to play things on your mind. It's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one. And to have no one in here that is like properly educated and experienced within the mental health industry, not on this advisory panel, I think this is a big concern. I think there's things wrong here. I'm not a big fan of either of these advisory panels. Let's see, comments from Roger Cook. This is another significant step in West Australia's journey to include introducing voluntary assisted dying. It was an extremely emotional day when the voluntary assisted dying bill passed through Parliament on December 10, 2019. Since then, the Department of Health has led the work to turn the bill into reality. The 18-month implementation period has been highly productive. There has been so much excellent work in the implementation leadership team chaired by Dr. Scott Blackwell and its experts from a range of disciplines and backgrounds, including medical, nursing, primary health, Aboriginal health, and consumer experience. I don't know why you're talking about consumer experience with someone who wants to kill themselves. Like, that just... So after the voluntary dying assistance has come through, they go, so, family who've just lost a loved one, can you rate our services out of 10? Did we kill them in an efficient and peaceful manner? Like, really? No, I think that's stupid. I think that's a really, really stupid comment from the minister. It has been a thought process which is now on the cusp of introduction on July 1. The Voluntary Assisted Dying Board will play a crucial role in overseeing its introduction and implementation. We are pleased to have members with such diverse experience and expertise, as well as compassion and commitment for providing an additional choice to eligible West Australians at the end of life. So they're saying there's politician, advocate, potentially politician, doctor, and the chairperson is also a doctor. So that's a huge range of experience going into this board. Let me throw a question through to you. So going along the lines of Murphy's Law. So if something can happen, it will. That's just Murphy's Law. So let's say there's a bad person out there and they have a terminally ill person or someone with, let's say it's Alzheimer's, Parkinson, there's some sort of disease, there is no cure, their mental capability is just not there. They've got to be full-time cared for, and this very, very bad person who's a family member decides, you know what, I want the inheritance because they're worth multiple millions of dollars. So they apply to the board and they put on this big sob story, and the board decides, yes, that person should be allowed to terminate their life early. Okay. It is later found out that the person who applied on behalf of the person that's terminally ill had bragged about it in social media, and it's found out that it wasn't a case of this person wanted to terminate their life early. It was pushed on them by this very bad person. If that gets through, this board, are they going to be the ones that are going to cop the responsibility, or will it be the health minister who allows this sort of thing to happen? So, question for you. If you are listening to the stream now or later, please check and comment. Who do you think should be the one ultimately responsible if something like this gets through? Because knowing people and how bad some people can be out there, I think it'd be only a matter of a year or two before something like this happens. I think there is going to be a case where they're going to use this board to cover an intentional murder, and murder through voluntary assisted dying. I want to know who's going to be ultimately responsible for that, for allowing something of that caliber to get through. So I'm really not happy with this. I think it's stupid, I think it's bad, and I think it's going to get abused to no end. So let us know what your thoughts are on that one. So just check a comment in do your thing, and we'll take it from there. So now there has been a press release come from. Where is he? Here he is. Do the zoom in. Pull up OBS again and chuck that one on. So we have the Honourable Paul Paplia, CSC MLA. I'd love to know what CSC stands for. Minister for Police and Road Safety. Time to sweat. McGowan government crackdown on impaired drivers. New offences for drivers caught with both drugs and alcohol in their system. I think that's a great thing. Increased penalties for drink and drug driving. Multimedia awareness campaign begins today. So this was Sunday as well. Let's skip through this one. A driver who records a blood alcohol reading in excess of 0.05 tests positive to drugs as well will have their license disqualified for the minimum of 3 months and face a fine of up to $1,900 for the first offence. Repeat offenders could face a mandatory license disqualification for life and fine up to $11,250 for driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol. So how am I going to put this one? I don't think this first fine is actually severe enough. Drug and alcohol drivers at the same time, you just totally messed up. You have no place being on the road. I don't think the fine is excessive enough to deter people who are meant because when you're drunk and on drugs at the same time, you're not thinking straight. I think the fine should be more severe. Personally, I'd like to see the fine up around the $5,000 mark. And a lot of people go, you got to remember the fine is a deterrent to make sure people aren't going to do it. So while someone is sober, they're just not going to do it. But the moment that they're drunk and on drugs, is the fine going to be sufficient to make them not want to drive? And I don't know. So repeat offenders, 11,000, maybe 15,000 would have been a better amount. It's nice and round, easy. Lifetime disqualification of their license. I'm not sure about that one. I'm on the fence on that one, sort of, because you got to remember when you're drunk and driving and on drugs at the same time, it's way worse than just being drunk driving. But Australia is such a spread out country, and our public transport in WA is terrible. It's shockingly bad. So lifetime disqualification, maybe 12 months would have been better, an immediate 12 months disqualification. And then good behaviour. So if you're caught doing something naughty within 12 months of after getting your license back, it goes to another 2-year, double or nothing. I think that something like that would have been a lot better. Penalties for existing standalone drink driving offences will increase and a minimum of 1.5 times the current penalty. Yeah. The penalty for refusing to comply with a direction from police to provide a breath or saliva sampling for testing will more than double. I'm not a big fan of that. I consider breath and saliva sampling as a medical procedure because they are, with the saliva one, they've got to put something in your mouth. I think they should be able to, there shouldn't be a penalty at all, but I think they should be able to stop you from driving and impound your car for like 24-hour period or something like that. But then that just means every single person that, if they know they're on drugs, they get pulled over, they'll just go, no, I'm not doing it. Because you really should be, for a medical reason, doing this. Breath, I don't mind too much. I don't know. I'm on the fence that one because how you don't tell if someone's on drugs if you don't do a saliva sample. So, the increase in penalties reflect the seriousness of the driving while affected by drugs and alcohol. Yeah, that's true. Last year, there were 42 road fatalities where alcohol was suspected to be a factor. Alcohol. So this is one of the things I find fascinating. Like, alcohol was directly responsible for 42 fatalities on the road last year. I'm pretty sure that's just the WA figures. I'd love to see how many cases was there where marijuana was the deciding factor or the fatality. I just find the fact that we're so blasé with alcohol, but yet we're so strict on potentially. I'm not going to say it's harmless because marijuana isn't harmless. There's side effects and risks associated with it, but the risk factor of marijuana compared to alcohol is massively different. And you have a look at, especially with people with things like Parkinson's disease, chronic pain, going through terminal illness. I know you got medical cannabis now, but it's just so hard to get it. It's expensive. I've got a friend who's trying to create a medical cannabis crop. And it's just next to impossible to be able to do anything. So I think there definitely needs to be lightening up on the marijuana side of things. The Road Safety Commissioner has developed a road safety campaign to educate the community on the new impaired driving offences penalties, which will run statewide on TV, radio, and digital platforms from tonight. So this was Sunday from memory. Yeah, Sunday. I still haven't seen one, so it'll be interesting to see what happens social media side of things, because there's more and more people who don't listen to the radio, don't watch the TV because they know mainstream media is just full of crap. And so the only way that they see these sort of advertising is actually on social media platforms, YouTube advertising, and things like that. So, all right, comments from Paul Paplia. Impaired driving is a major contribution to road trauma in Western Australia. We are determined to take dangerous drivers off our road and make our road safer for all road users. We have invested significant in increasing enforcement, and now we are introducing these tougher penalties. It should send a clear message to the community about the seriousness and the risk to all road users when you get behind the wheel under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Now, one of the things I want to really push here that they haven't really touched on here, and I hope they do in the marketing campaign, peer pressure. Peer pressure is one of the best things to stop someone from drink driving. If you know one of your mates has had a few beers and he jumps behind the wheel, just take his keys. Just say, look, no, mate, no, don't. Get him a taxi, organise, get his car taken home for him. What I'd love to see is for drunk drivers, for people who are drunk and they're like, oh, I've run out of money, taxis should be able to have a system where you chuck something into them and the taxi can still take you home even though you've got no money, and then the government sort of like reimburses you, then you chase the government up, then you've got to pay the government or something like that. Because a lot of the times you're out at night, you're drinking, there's someone you find super attractive, so you're buying them a few drinks as well, and before you know it, you're out of money, your card's not working, so you can't get home. So you've got two options: drive home or walk home. And so I think if there's an option to get yourself home, I think that'd be a lot better. I think that would be a lot better way to fund using these finances rather than using advertising campaigns, things like that. So just having other options rather than driving yourself when you're drunk home would be a lot better facility. Having a key locker system at pubs, I think, would be a really good thing as well. So you know how you go to the pub and you give them your jacket and you get a key tag, and at the end of the night you give them the tag back and then you get your jacket. I think anyone who's drinking, having the thing where, you know, at schools they take the phones off and put them in the classroom and they lock them away so no one can use them during the things. I think if you're drinking and you go down at the end of the night, you go grab your keys, you have to pass the breathalyzer. I think something like that might be worthwhile. There's so many better ways to do this rather than just wasting money on advertising campaigns and tougher penalties, which don't really, it's a deterrent. Give the facilities for people who have been drinking, because when you're drunk, you don't think about things like this. So, yeah, I don't know. I like the increased fines and the fine suspension, but I think it's like cleaning a window. You're only cleaning one side, you should be cleaning both sides. So, yeah, I think more needs to be done on this one. I think they're just looking at it from one angle. They're not looking at it from multiple. So that's something I would like to see. Now, there's literally, as we were going to air, another press release did come out. Now, I have no idea whatsoever this one is about. It came through at 1:45 today. It's actually the only one that came through today. So let's go have a look. Okay, pop that one on. Boom. Okay. Looks like he's committed to doing another election commitment. Okay, so this is from the Honourable Mark McGowan, MLA, Premier Treasurer. Stupid. Anyway, election commitment delivered on household fees and charges. 377 million allocated to keep the average household basket of fees and charges at 1.6% below the projected inflation rate of 1.75% in 2021-22. Household water and electricity tariffs will increase in line with inflation after they were frozen last year. McGowan government has spent $1.9 billion to keep household fees and charges low and provide relief through the COVID-19 pandemic. Small business electricity charges also limited to 1.75%. Pilbara Port Authority to increase tonnage charges at the Port Hedland Port by 25% in 2021-22. So while they're charging you more to cover the costs for their COVID pandemic, have they told you at all about the compensation you're legally entitled to request for the damages caused by the state of emergency? No, they have not. They are still not talking about this. So, all right. The McGowan Labor government is delivering on its commitment to keep household electricity and water charges tied to the rate of inflation and limit costs of living pressures for Western Australian households. The cost increases should be stuck to the inflation rate anyway. The fact that it's going up greater than inflation is terrible. This year, due to the state election, the 2021-22 budget will be handed down in September. Therefore, the government is required to release updated household tariffs, fees and charges prior to the start of the new financial year. So they did that a month early. From July 1, 2021, the household basket of fees and charges will raise by 1.6%, below the projected consumer price index of 1.75% in 2021-22. The cost to government of keeping these fees and charges low was expected to be $377 million. Okay, so that's not the cost, that's the reduction in the amount of tax revenue you're receiving. So it's not costing the government, it's selective reporting there. During the election, the McGowan government committed to ensuring increases in electricity and water charges were capped out inflation. As promised, these have been limited to the projected inflation costs, the forward estimates including 1.75% in the 21-22 year. There will be no increase in Trans-Perth or Trans-WA fares in 21-22, benefiting those in metropolitan Perth and regional areas. I'd love to know how that is going to help people in regional areas when the public transport in places like Geraldton, Kalgoorlie, Karratha is just shocking. Like, there needs to be a major investment into regional transportation, especially things within 400 kilometres of Perth, having the ability to get to and from Perth, some of these regional areas like Kalgoorlie, Geraldton, Bunbury, Esperance, like the whole entire lot. I'd love to see daily, especially with the electrical grid. Why can't we have, the main trains in the Perth metro area? Why can't we have the Joondalup line running all the way up the coast through Jurien Bay, all the way up to Geraldton, stopping at Cervantes and a whole heap of these other regional areas? Have the Mandurah line stopping at Bunbury, Augusta, possibly Busselton, Walpole, these really great regional areas. So imagine jumping on a train for 3 hours, because these things can absolutely rocket once they get onto the regional areas and they're dead straight. Traveling from Perth to Albany in 4 hours, getting there, having a social visit in Albany for 4 hours, and then coming back home, say 7 o'clock that night on the train. The ability for weekend trips and all that sort of stuff, I think that would be a massive tourist assistance, especially for internal tourism. I just think that'd be a massive game changer in WA. I think that would be the ability for people to get out of Perth without a car would make massive improvements to regional traffic, especially when you got all those trucks, and also having those train lines going to these regional centres. Why can't we run freight on these lines at the same time? So it will also reduce the amount of trucks on the road. So free thinking like that is definitely needed. So to say that, the whole concept of keeping Trans-Perth and Trans-WA fares in 21-22 down, it's stupid. So much the government could be doing and they're not doing. The McGowan government will also deliver its election commitment to 2-zone fare cap on transfer fees beginning January 1, 2022, saving some households up to $8.20 per one-way fare for every trip. This benefit is not capped in the household basket, which assumes a 2-zone fare. Okay, so this one came out a while ago. This is nothing new. The delivery of this commitment means that household livings, for example, in Dorville, will potentially save more than $3,000 per year. I wonder if that's a direct stab at the spineless jellyfish, Zach Kirkup. We'll see. The Emergency Services Levy, ESL, will be $28 lower in 21-22 for the average household, excuse me, compared to 19-20 year, despite a 4.3% increase following the Mark McGowan's government's decision to pass on the benefits of low gross rental value in 2021. I'm actually not a big fan of this. I think the emergency service levy should have stayed the same or gone up. The work that the emergency services people do is phenomenal. I think they need more funding. I think we could do with a lot more emergency service personnel. You're taking from the wrong industry there. It's like taking money away from the nurses. That's one of the most stupidest things you could be possibly doing. If anything, you should be giving more money to health, nurses, policing, traffic, all those sort of things should be going up. The ESL for the average metropolitan household will therefore be $283 in 21-22 compared to $311 in 19-20. I would happily pay an extra $40 to make sure these guys stay well funded. I think that's a bad play. Motor vehicle related charges will raise by a total of 3%. Whatever. I'm wondering if they're slapping that one because it's fossil fuels. Overall, the basket of charges for the average household will increase by $99.37 or less than 30 cents per day. It's still an extra $100 per year. Now, let's see if everyone's wages are going up by the same amount. Compared to pre-COVID-19 levels, household charges will be just 0.6% higher in 21-22 compared to 19-20. Given the continued benefits of passing on the low GRV and the freeze on household charges. So gross residential values, gross rental values, I think it is. That's for calculating your rates on your household. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. So even though you may not get slammed this year, the year after they're going to correct it. So please be aware, 22-23, you probably don't get smashed with a massive rate increase. Over the past 3 years, McGowan government has spent $1.9 billion to keep household fees and charges low and provide relief through COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of that money actually came from the federal government. It was also announced that today that the Pilbara Port Authority charges at Port Hedland Port will increase by 25%, which combined with the revised export volumes and expected to raise around $195 million over the next 4 years. Small businesses and charity electricity tariffs increase for Synergy and Horizon Power customers will be reduced and also in line with inflation of 1.75% costs at a cost to the government of $45.1 million. This is just more wank factor to advertise, hey, look how great we are. My government is delivering on the election commitment to slash public transport fees and increase and limit increase their household fees and charges. In order to put more money back into the pockets of Western Australian households, we are spending $377 million to keep the average household basket of fees and charges below CPI in 21-22. So again, they're not spending $377 million to keep the prices low. They're not charging extra fees and charges. So they're not spending money on this one. This builds on the government's $600 household electricity credit last year, which saw Western Australian household fees and charges reduce on average by 10.4% for the representative household. It's a big deduction. I'll question how they got that figure. Limiting increases to the household fees and charges has only been possible due to my government's strong and sensible financial management. No, you're just charging the heck out of the mining industry. and then say, hey, look at us, blah, 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 blah. I'm just wondering if there will ever be a COVID pandemic levy imposed, like the emergency service levy or the Medicare levy. We got to cover the cost of the pandemic, so we don't charge you 5% extra tax. That's what I'm just waiting for. Importantly, this includes our promise to cap public transport fares to the cost of a 2-zone ticket, no matter where your journey takes you. Again, you've already done that one. For as little $4.90 for a cash fare, a person can travel from Joondalup to Mandurah. This important initiative will save some commuters thousands each year and will help ease congestion on our roads. It's a little bit too little too late, like, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like this one. It's just, to me, that's just, look at me, I'm doing something for the poor, or the people who are struggling. I think there's a lot better things we could be doing. The former Liberal national government never contained household fees and charges to inflation in any year over their 2 terms, which cost households $2,100 higher each year by the time they left office. Yeah, the Barnett government wasn't a very good one. I'm not going to argue with that one. There's not much I can argue. But again, it's one of those things. Oh, look at me, I'm so great, blah, 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 blah. Nah. This is just massive advertising for the upcoming election. Trying to boost his popularity again. He's suffering pretty bad with the COVID passport and forcing kids to get the COVID vaccine if they want to go to school. That's the sort of decision that should be made by the parents, not by the government. Your family, your choice. If you think your kids should have an experimental vaccine, that's your decision. Me personally, until there's more research into the vaccine and the outcomes and the dangers of it, I'd prefer not to vaccinate my children. Personally, I won't be getting it. I've got all the other vaccines, but I won't be getting this one. Not until I see more figures. I'm starting to see reports that the death rate of taking the vaccine is actually higher than what the COVID virus itself is. So that'll be very interesting to find out. I'm trying to find the sources, so I haven't covered it yet. So anyway, that's the last of the press releases for today. Now, one thing that I do want to do, I've always said that if my Patreons have any articles they want me to cover, I'm more than happy to cover them in these shows. One of the, I don't know if they're a Patreon yet, but they've been a big supporter, so I don't treat them like a Patreon. He's raised concerns that there's a pesticide that they use underneath buildings to prevent grass and everything growing up and affecting the slabs. Apparently, it's an extremely dangerous, very, very potent pesticide, and it's got links to ovarian cancer, testicular cancer, breast cancer, leukemia, and a whole heap of others, to the point where I can't remember the name of the pesticide, so I'll have to find out. Sorry, not pesticide, herbicide. So, and it's not glyphosate, it's another one. So it's actually been banned in quite a few countries in the past, but apparently it's still readily available in Australia and still used a lot, and everyone refuses to talk about it. So I'm going to be doing some research on that one, trying to find out some facts, figures, and stuff like that. Because I think if it's as bad as glyphosate is, and they've banned, like not banned, but they've heavily reduced the use of glyphosate, I think that talk about this one really needs to be done. So I'll find that one out for you. So again, if you do have anything you want to talk about on these shows, please make sure you send us a message. Have a bit of a chat with us, and we can take it from there. So anyway, guys, thank you very much. This has been another Carter's Corner and Carter's Corner Daily. I'm the host, Travis Carter, and don't forget to hit us up Facebook, YouTube, and become a Patreon. So cheers, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.